How they thought humanity feared war. Then the galaxy discovered its mistake. The alarm blared throughout the United Earth Defense Headquarters, a sound that had not been heard in nearly 30 years. Commander Marcus Reed rushed into the control room, his uniform hastily buttoned. The large screen at the front of the room showed dozens of unknown objects approaching Earth's solar system. "Report," Reed demanded, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Admiral Thorne, an older man with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much war in his youth, pointed to the screen. 57 ships entered our system 30 minutes ago. They bypassed our outer warning systems. Technology we've never seen before. Reed studied the information scrolling across the screen. The ships were massive, easily dwarfing Earth's largest vessels. "Have they made contact?" "Not yet," Admiral Thorne said. But they're moving in a formation. This isn't random. This is organized." Dr. Eleanor Wright, the lead xenolinguist for the Earth Defense Force, entered the room. Her expertise in potential alien communication patterns had been theoretical until now. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission." "It's being broadcast on all frequencies," Reed nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered and a figure appeared. It was humanoid but clearly alien, tall with greenish-blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its words were translated through Dr. Wright's communication system. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Krex of the Galactic Confederation. We represent 27 species across this sector of the galaxy. We have been observing your world for some time." Reed exchanged glances with Admiral Thorne. The thought that aliens had been watching them without their knowledge was disturbing. "We have determined that your species has reached a level of development that qualifies you for contact. We come offering protection and guidance." "And protection from what?" Reed asked, his voice echoing through the transmission. The alien seemed surprised by the interruption. "From the dangers of space, of course. From your own destructive tendencies. We have studied your history. For a species so young, you have engaged in an unusual amount of internal conflict. We call it war," Admiral Thorne said bluntly. "And we haven't had one for almost 3 decades. Ambassador Krex's upper eyes blinked. "Yes, we noticed this period of unusual restraint. It suggests your species has finally recognized the futility of warfare. This is good. The Confederation values peace above all." Dr. Wright leaned close to Reed. "Commander, something doesn't feel right about this." Reed nodded slightly. He felt it too. "Ambassador Krex, we appreciate your contact. Perhaps we could arrange a proper meeting to discuss." "We will arrive at your planet in 6 of your Earth days," Krex interrupted. "At that time, we will present the terms of your protection agreement. The Confederation welcomes Earth into its embrace." The screen went dark. The room was silent for a moment before erupting into chaos. "Protection agreement? What does that mean?" Someone shouted. "Are we being invaded or welcomed?" asked another. Reed raised his hand and the room quieted. "Dr. Wright, what's your assessment?" Eleanor Wright had been taking notes throughout the exchange. Their language patterns suggest dominance, not cooperation. Protection agreement sounds like a euphemism. They're not asking if we want their protection. They're telling us we'll be getting it. Admiral Thorne's face darkened. Sounds like a fancy way of saying surrender. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Reed said, though his gut told him Thorne was right. "We need more information. Doctor, analyze everything about that message, tone, word choice, body language, if their species even has comparable expressions." "Already on it," Dr. Wright replied, her fingers flying across her tablet. Reed turned to the rest of the room. "I want all our satellite data on those ships. I want to know their capabilities, their weaknesses, and I want our own fleet on high alert, but discreetly. If they're watching us, I don't want them to see us preparing for a fight." "You think it will come to that?" Admiral Thorne asked quietly as the others rushed to follow orders. Reed stared at the empty screen where Ambassador Krex had been. "I think we need to be ready if it does." Over the next 5 days, Earth's leadership prepared in secret while publicly announcing the exciting news of first contact. The people of Earth celebrated, unaware of the growing concern among those who had actually spoken with Ambassador Krex. Dr. Wright worked tirelessly, analyzing not just the words of the message but comparing them to historical ultimatums throughout human history. "It's the same pattern," she told Reed, as they sat in his office late on the 5th night. "The same language used by every conquering force when they want the conquered to submit without a fight. They're offering us the chance to surrender peacefully. Reed nodded, unsurprised. That matches what our intelligence has gathered. Those ships are warships, Eleanor. Heavily armed. Not exactly a diplomatic fleet. Dr. Wright looked troubled. But why us? Why now? I've been asking myself the same question, Reed said. He pulled up a file on his computer. I've been reviewing our history. Not just recent history, but all of it. The wars, the conflicts. We've had a lot of them, Dr. Wright acknowledged. Too many, Reed agreed. But something strange happened about 30 years ago. We stopped. After the last Earth War, when billions died and 3 countries ceased to exist, we collectively decided enough was enough. The peace accords, Dr. Wright nodded. Every nation signed. Reed leaned forward. What if that's what caught their attention? What if they saw a species that had been almost constantly at war suddenly stop? They might have interpreted that as fear, as weakness. Dr. Wright's eyes widened as she followed his logic. They think we're afraid of conflict. Exactly. Ambassador Krex said it himself. He called it unusual restraint and seemed pleased that we'd recognize the futility of warfare. But that's not why we stopped fighting, is it? Dr. Wright shook her head. No, we stopped because we got too good at it. The last Earth War showed us what our weapons could really do. We stepped back from the brink not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Reed nodded grimly. And now these aliens have shown up thinking they found an easy target. A species that has lost its will to fight. The next day, Ambassador Krex's ship landed outside the United Nations headquarters in New York. The meeting was broadcast worldwide as Krex presented the terms of the protection agreement. The terms were exactly what Reed had feared. Earth would be allowed to maintain its own governments, but all major decisions would require Confederation approval. Earth's resources would be shared with the Confederation, and Earth would be required to provide security personnel, soldiers, to serve the Confederation when needed. It wasn't protection. It was subjugation. When Krex finished speaking, there was stunned silence in the assembly hall. Finally, the Secretary General spoke. This is quite extensive, Ambassador. We will need time to consider. Krex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Of course. The Confederation is not unreasonable. You have 1 month to accept our generous terms. And if we don't accept, the Secretary General asked, her voice steady, then we will be forced to reconsider the nature of our relationship. Krex said smoothly. The Confederation prefers peaceful incorporation, but we are prepared for alternatives. After Krex left, Earth's leaders gathered in an emergency session. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for immediate surrender, citing the advanced technology of the aliens. Others called for resistance at any cost. Commander Reed was finally called to speak. He stood before the world's leaders calm and collected. The Galactic Confederation has made a critical error in their assessment of humanity, he began. They've mistaken our restraint for weakness. They've interpreted our peace as fear. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each leader. But we didn't stop waging war because we were afraid of it. We stopped because we had mastered it so thoroughly that we recognized its ultimate cost. We chose peace not from weakness, but from strength. Reed pressed a button, and images appeared on the screen behind him. Hidden military bases, advanced weapons systems, defense platforms disguised as scientific outposts. We never stopped preparing. We never stopped advancing our technology. We just stopped using it against each other. The room was silent as Reed continued. The Confederation thinks we fear war. They're about to discover their mistake. Later, back at Defense Headquarters, Admiral Thorne found Reed studying battle plans. The leaders have voted, Thorne said. We're not accepting Krex's terms. Reed nodded, unsurprised. I never expected we would. So we fight, Thorne said, his old eyes both sad and determined. We fight, Reed agreed. But not like we've fought before. This time, all of humanity stands together against a common threat. As Thorne turned to leave, Reed called after him. Admiral, they've mistaken our restraint for weakness. That's a mistake no species has ever made twice. They thought humanity feared war. Then the galaxy discovered its mistake. Confederation ships began positioning themselves throughout the solar system in the days following Ambassador Krex's ultimatum. They placed vessels in orbit around Mars, Jupiter's moons, and Saturn, treating Earth's territory as if it were already conquered. Commander Marcus Reed watched the tactical display with Lieutenant Danny Torres, his newly appointed tactical specialist. Torres had a background in guerrilla warfare that Reed thought might prove useful against an enemy that outmatched them in conventional strength. "They're not even trying to hide their intentions," Torres said, pointing to the screen. "Look at these positions. They're setting up a blockade." Reed nodded grimly. "They don't think they need to hide anything. They believe we'll surrender." "Their mistake," Torres said with a fierce smile. Reed's communication device buzzed. Dr. Eleanor Wright was requesting his presence in her lab. When Reed arrived, she was surrounded by holographic displays showing alien text. "I've deciphered more of their communications," Wright said without preamble. "They've done this before, Marcus. Many times," she gestured, and the displays changed to show different alien writing. "These are records of their interactions with at least 15 other species. Same pattern each time. First contact, offer of protection, then either peaceful subjugation or conquest." Reed studied the information. "Any species ever successfully resist?" Wright shook her head. "Not according to these records, but—" She hesitated. "What?" "None of those species were like us." Wright pulled up new displays. Biological data on various alien species. They're all different from each other physically, but psychologically they share similarities. None of them have our history of warfare. None of them have our adaptability. Reed considered this. "You're saying we're uniquely qualified to fight them because we've spent so much of our history fighting each other?" "Exactly. Humans are adaptable in ways these other species aren't. We've had to be. Our ability to adjust to new threats, to innovate in combat situations, it's unparalleled, at least among the species the Confederation has encountered." Reed's communication device buzzed again. Admiral Thorne needed him at a secure facility beneath the old Rocky Mountains. "Keep digging," Reed told Wright. "Find any weakness we can exploit." The underground facility had been built during the last Earth War, and then officially decommissioned afterward. In reality, it had been maintained in secret, one of many such installations around the world. Admiral Thorne was waiting with General Vincent Blake, a retired military leader who had commanded forces during the last Earth War. Blake had been called back to service given the current crisis. "Commander Reed," Blake greeted him. "Glad you could join us." "We're about to wake the dragons." Reed knew what that meant. After the devastation of the last Earth War, the nations of Earth had agreed to mothball their most destructive weapons systems. But mothball didn't mean destroyed. They entered a vast chamber filled with rows of sleek, black machines, combat drones with advanced AI systems that had been developed but never deployed in the final days of the last Earth War. "How many do we have?" Reed asked. 10,000 here," Thorne answered. "Another 40,000 in facilities around the world. And that's just the beginning." They moved to another chamber where a small, unassuming man was waiting. Scientist Raj Patel was responsible for the most classified weapons development program on Earth. "Commander Reed," Patel greeted him. "I was told you'd be coming. You're here to see Project Prometheus?" Reed nodded. "Show me what we've been hiding." Patel led them to a sealed vault. After multiple security checks, the massive door swung open to reveal a surprisingly small device sitting on a pedestal. "This doesn't look like much," Reed observed. "That's intentional," Patel explained. "It's designed to be overlooked. But this device can disable any electronic system within a 50-kilometer radius without damaging organic life. We developed it 30 years ago but shelved it because of its potential for economic disruption." "And now?" Reed asked. "Now we've improved it. The range is larger, the effect more targeted. We can specifically disable their ship's systems while leaving our own intact." Reed nodded approvingly. "What else do we have?" For the next several hours, Patel showed them weapon after weapon, defense system after defense system, technology that had been developed in secret over decades, never used because humans had finally learned to stop fighting each other. Later, in a secure conference room, Reed met with Earth's military leaders to discuss strategy. The public face of Earth's response to the Confederation was one of careful consideration of their terms, perhaps even leaning toward acceptance. Behind closed doors, a different plan was taking shape. "We need to appear weak while preparing to be strong," Reed explained. "The Confederation's overconfidence is one of our few advantages." General Blake nodded. "A classic strategy. Let the enemy underestimate you." "Exactly. We'll continue diplomatic talks, ask for extensions, act uncertain. Meanwhile, we activate everything we have." Admiral Thorne looked troubled. Even if we deploy every weapon, every defense system we've mothballed, we're still outmatched technologically. That's where this comes in, Reed said, displaying a new hologram. It showed a complete analysis of the Confederation ships, highlighting specific vulnerabilities. Dr. Wright's team has been analyzing their communications in their ships. They use standardized systems across their fleet, efficient but predictable, and they rely heavily on automated systems. Automated systems can be hacked, Lieutenant Torres pointed out. Reed nodded. That's our opening move. Before a single shot is fired, we take control of as many of their systems as possible. The plan developed rapidly. Earth would use its hidden strengths to strike first, targeting the Confederation's weaknesses. But everyone knew the risk. If they failed, humanity would face an enemy that would no longer underestimate them and would show no mercy. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Thorne pulled Reed aside. "There's something else you should see," he said quietly. They traveled to a facility deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, accessible only by a specialized submarine. The security was beyond anything Reed had ever experienced, requiring DNA, retinal, and voice confirmation at multiple checkpoints. Finally, they reached a chamber where a team of technicians worked around a central pillar containing what looked like a swirling liquid metal. "What am I looking at?" Reed asked. "The future," Thorne replied, "or possibly the end of everything. This is Project Lazarus, artificial intelligence unlike anything we've developed before. It was created during the last Earth War but never activated because we couldn't guarantee we could control it." Reed stared at the swirling metal. "And now? Now we might not have a choice. This AI was designed to adapt to any warfare scenario, to learn and evolve faster than any human could program. If we activate it, it could give us the edge we need against the Confederation. Or it could decide humans are the real problem," Reed said. Thorne nodded grimly. "That's the risk. But I wanted you to know it exists. It's our last resort." As they left the facility, Reed's mind was racing. Humanity had been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. All the weapons they had developed to use against each other could now be turned against an external threat. Back at Defense Headquarters, Reed found Dr. Wright waiting with new information. "We've intercepted and decoded more of their communications," she said excitedly. "The Confederation is already planning how to divide Earth's resources. They're so confident we'll surrender that they're arguing among themselves about who gets what." Reed smiled for the first time in days. "Perfect. The more overconfident they are, the better." "There's more," Wright said. "They've never encountered resistance that lasted more than a few days. Their battle strategies are, I don't want to say primitive, but they're standardized, algorithmic. They don't adapt well to unexpected situations. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's creating unexpected situations," Reed observed. Over the next few days, as the diplomatic talks with Ambassador Krex continued on the surface, beneath that facade Earth was preparing for war. Hidden military installations around the solar system were quietly activated. Mothballed weapon systems were brought online. Defense platforms disguised as mining operations powered up their systems. The day before the Confederation's deadline was to expire, Admiral Thorne found Reed in the control room, monitoring the final preparations. "Everything is in place," Thorne reported. "We're as ready as we'll ever be." Reed nodded. "Then it's time to show the Confederation why they should have feared us all along." Thorne looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of Confederation ships throughout the solar system, still blissfully unaware of what was about to happen. "For the first time in 50 years, Thorne said quietly, "we're letting the dogs of war off their leash." Reed's expression was grim but determined. "And the Confederation is about to learn that humanity hasn't feared war. We've mastered it." They thought humanity feared war. Then the galaxy discovered its mistake as the deadline for Earth's surrender approached. Ambassador Krex became increasingly smug in his communications with Earth's leaders. The lack of visible military response from the humans had convinced him that they were too frightened to fight. "Your species shows wisdom in recognizing its limitations," Krex told the Secretary General during their final scheduled meeting before the deadline. "The Confederation will be a benevolent guardian." The Secretary General smiled politely. "We appreciate your patience, Ambassador. Our planet's leaders are still discussing the finer points of your proposal." Krex made a dismissive gesture with one of his forearms. "Discussion is unnecessary. The terms are not negotiable. But if it makes your transition easier, we will grant you one more day. After Krex left, the Secretary General contacted Commander Reed. One more day, she said. Are we ready? Reed nodded grimly. We're ready. Operation First Strike begins at dawn. Throughout Earth's solar system, hidden preparations were complete. Space stations officially listed as scientific outposts had secretly housed military equipment for decades. Asteroid mining operations served as covers for weapon platforms. Even the civilian colonies on Mars and Europa had defensive capabilities that had never been publicly acknowledged. Captain Alexander Mitchell commanded the stealth vessel, Spectre, a ship whose existence was known to fewer than 50 people on Earth. The Spectre employed technology that made it virtually invisible to conventional detection methods. It was currently positioned near 3 Confederation cruisers in orbit around Mars. All systems ready, Mitchell reported to his crew. Remember, our mission is surgical. Disable their communications and propulsion systems, but avoid destroying the vessels if possible. We want to capture their technology intact. The crew acknowledged their orders. At exactly 0600 Earth Universal Time, the Spectre fired its first shot. The Confederation cruiser never detected the attack coming. One moment it was on standard patrol. The next its systems were failing. Before the crew could respond, the second and third cruisers suffered the same fate. Similar scenes played out across the solar system as humanity launched a carefully coordinated surprise attack on key Confederation positions. Major Lisa Reeves led Earth's first interstellar special forces unit in a daring operation. Using a captured Confederation shuttle that Dr. Wright's team had learned to operate, Reeves and her team boarded a Confederation communications hub positioned near Jupiter. The alien guards were taken completely by surprise. They had been told that humans were a peaceful species that had abandoned warfare. They weren't prepared for the silent efficiency with which Reeves's team took control of the station. Hub secure, Reeves reported back to Earth Command. Minimal resistance. We have access to their tactical network. Back on Earth, Dr. Wright and her team immediately began downloading data from the captured hub. The information was invaluable. Complete maps of Confederation territory, technical specifications of their ships, and most importantly, their command protocols. They never expected to be hacked. Wright told Reed as information streamed across her screens. Their security is focused on their known enemies, not on species they've already written off as conquered. Reed smiled grimly. Their mistake. As reports of successful operations flooded in, Reed knew they had achieved the critical element of surprise. But he also knew it wouldn't last. The Confederation was still vastly more powerful than humanity, with resources spread across dozens of star systems. This was only the beginning. In his luxurious quarters aboard the Confederation flagship, Ambassador Krex was enjoying a final meal before what he expected to be Earth's formal surrender. His communication device chimed with an urgent message. "What is it?" he asked irritably. "I left instructions not to be disturbed." The face of a panicked Confederation officer appeared on the screen. "Ambassador, we're under attack." "The humans, they've disabled outposts across their system. We've lost contact with 3 cruisers near their red planet, and the communications hub near the gas giant has gone dark." Krex's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible. Their military capability is minimal. Our scans confirmed it." "The scans were wrong," the officer said, his voice rising in pitch. "They have technology we didn't detect. Stealth vessels. Weapons that can remotely disable our systems." Krex felt the first stirrings of doubt. Had they miscalculated? On the bridge of the Confederation flagship, chaos reigned as reports of attacks flooded in from throughout the solar system. Krex demanded answers from his military advisors. "How is this possible?" he raged. "You assured me they were a species that had turned away from warfare." The military advisor, a grizzled veteran of previous conquests, looked shaken. "All of our intelligence supported that conclusion. Their visible military infrastructure has been minimal for decades. There have been no major conflicts on their planet." "Then explain this." Krex gestured wildly at the tactical display showing the positions of disabled Confederation ships. The advisor had no answer. Meanwhile, a junior Confederation diplomat named Vox had secretly arranged a meeting with Dr. Wright. Unlike most of his species, Vox had spent time studying human history out of personal interest, and what he'd learned had troubled him. Your people never shared the complete historical records with the Confederation leadership, Vox told Wright when they met in a secure location. They only saw your recent piece, not what came before. And what did you see? Wright asked. A species that nearly destroyed itself multiple times through warfare, yet always emerged stronger. A species that developed weapons of terrifying power, then chose not to use them. That's not weakness. That's restraint, Wright nodded. We learned our lessons the hard way. The Confederation has never encountered serious resistance, Vox continued. They've grown complacent. Many of the worlds they claim to have conquered simply surrendered without a fight, believing resistance was futile. But we're fighting back, Wright said. Yes, and that's unprecedented. Some of us have long believed that the Confederation's approach is wrong. There are those among us who would prefer cooperation to conquest. Wright leaned forward. Are you offering to help us? Vox hesitated, then nodded. I can provide access codes to some of their secondary systems. Not enough to win your war, but perhaps enough to force them to reconsider their approach. As the first day of conflict drew to a close, humanity had won a series of small but significant victories. The element of surprise had allowed them to disable key Confederation assets with minimal casualties on either side. Commander Reed addressed Earth's military leaders. We've bloodied their nose, but the real fight is just beginning. The Confederation has resources across dozens of star systems. What we've faced so far is just their advance force. But we've proven they're not invincible, General Blake pointed out. Yes, and more importantly, we've shaken their confidence. They came here expecting an easy conquest. Now they're confused, unsure. We need to press that advantage before they can regroup. Reed outlined the next phase of Earth's strategy. With access to the Confederation's tactical network, they could predict where reinforcements would arrive. They would target those locations with more of their hidden weapon platforms. Meanwhile, the captured Confederation ships would be studied to reverse engineer their technology. Earth was behind, but it was catching up quickly. As Reed concluded the briefing, Admiral Thorne approached him privately. The President is considering activating Project Lazarus, Thorne said quietly. Reed frowned. The AI, it's too risky. We don't know if we can control it. I agree. But the Confederation's main fleet is still coming. If we can't stop it, Reed understood the concern. Despite their initial successes, humanity was still outmatched. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Aboard the Confederation flagship, Ambassador Krex received a secure communication from his homeworld. The Confederation leadership was displeased with the unexpected resistance from Earth. You assured us this would be a routine incorporation, the Supreme Leader said, his tone cold. Now we have disabled ships and captured personnel. A temporary setback, Krex insisted. The humans caught us by surprise, but our technological advantage is still overwhelming. Once our main fleet arrives, the humans have demonstrated capabilities we did not anticipate, the Supreme Leader interrupted. This changes the situation. I am taking personal command of the Earth operation. Krex felt a chill. The Supreme Leader rarely involved himself directly in conquests. This suggested a level of concern or interest that was unprecedented. Of course, Supreme Leader. I will prepare for your arrival. After the communication ended, Krex stared out the viewport at the blue-green planet below. How had he misjudged these humans so badly? Their apparent peacefulness had seemed like weakness, their lack of visible military infrastructure a sign of vulnerability. Now he wasn't so sure. For the first time in his long career as a Confederation ambassador, Krex felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Back on Earth, Captain Mitchell's stealth ship was preparing for another mission. This time they would target the Confederation flagship itself, not to destroy it, but to place surveillance devices that would allow them to monitor Krex's communications. This is our most dangerous mission yet, Mitchell told his Crywee. The flagship has better security than the vessels we've encountered so far. One mistake and we're detected. The crew understood the risks, but they also knew the importance of their mission. Intelligence was proving to be humanity's most powerful weapon in this conflict. As the Spectre approached the Confederation flagship, moving silently through space, Mitchell felt a surge of pride. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself, developing ever more sophisticated ways to wage war. Now all that terrible knowledge was being put to use against an external threat. The Spectre successfully placed its surveillance devices and withdrew without detection. Within hours, Earth Command was listening to Krex's conversations, including his communication with the Supreme Leader. So their leadership is concerned enough to get directly involved, Reed observed when he heard the recording. Good, that means we've gotten their attention. Dr. Wright looked worried. It also means they're taking us more seriously. They won't underestimate us again. True, but they still don't understand what they're facing. They think this is about technology, about military assets. It's not. What is it about then? Wright asked. Reed's expression was grim. It's about the human spirit. Throughout our history, nothing has united us like a common enemy. Nothing has spurred our innovation like the need to survive. The Confederation thinks they're facing a minor military challenge. What they're really facing is a species that has been forged in the fire of thousands of years of conflict. As Earth's forces prepared for the next phase of operations, Ambassador Krex received an update on the human attacks. His expression changed from confusion to the first flickers of fear as he realized humans don't fear war. They excel at it. They thought humanity feared war. Then the galaxy discovered its mistake. The Confederation responded to humanity's surprise attacks with overwhelming force. Hundreds of warships poured into the solar system through jump points beyond Pluto, their weapons charged and ready. They're not holding back anymore. Lieutenant Torres observed grimly as she and Commander Reed studied the tactical display. Reed nodded. They can't afford to. We've challenged their entire approach. If one species successfully resists, others might follow. The display showed the Confederation fleet spreading throughout the system in textbook formation. Their battle strategy was efficient, methodical, and entirely predictable. They're fighting like machines, Reed said, following preset algorithms. Then let's show them how humans fight, Torres replied. Earth's forces employed tactics that confounded the aliens' algorithmic battle strategies. Small, fast attack vessels darted in and out of asteroid fields, striking Confederation ships before disappearing again. Dummy targets drew enemy fire while the real threats approached from unexpected vectors. Military installations that appeared vulnerable suddenly revealed hidden defenses when Confederation forces moved to capture them. Director Olivia Parker, head of Earth Intelligence, coordinated a massive cyber assault on Confederation systems. AI warfare programs that had been developed for Earth. Conflicts but never deployed were now unleashed against alien networks. Their systems are sophisticated, but rigid, Parker reported to Reed. They don't adapt well to unexpected inputs. Our AI attacks evolve faster than their defenses can respond. Meanwhile, Fleet Commander Thomas Garcia led Earth's newly unveiled space armada from his flagship, the Defender. The existence of this fleet had been Earth's most closely guarded secret. Vessels constructed in hidden facilities beneath the oceans and inside hollowed-out asteroids. Defender to all Earth vessels. Garcia broadcast. Execute Pattern Omega. Target their command and communication nodes first. The human fleet moved with a flexibility that startled the Confederation commanders. Where the aliens fought in rigid formations, humans constantly adjusted, breaking into smaller groups, rejoining, changing tactics on the fly. Ambassador Krex watched the battle unfold with growing horror from the relative safety of the Confederation flagship, which had withdrawn to the edge of the solar system. This isn't possible, he muttered as he watched another Confederation cruiser go dark. How are they doing this? His aide, a junior officer who had studied human history more thoroughly than most, spoke hesitantly. Sir, I believe we fundamentally misunderstood these humans. Their peace wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a luxury they allowed themselves because they had mastered warfare. Krex turned all four eyes on the aide. Explain. Humans have fought more wars among themselves than any species we've encountered. They've had thousands of years to perfect the art of combat. When they stopped fighting each other, they didn't forget what they'd learned. They just stored it away. Krex considered this. And now they're using everything they learned against us. Yes, sir. And there's more. They adapt faster than any species we've encountered. Look at how quickly they've begun to incorporate our technology into their own systems. It was true. The humans had already begun using captured Confederation equipment, not just as intended, but in ways the original designers had never imagined. On Earth, Dr. Wright and her team worked frantically to understand and adapt Confederation technology. What might have taken years of research under normal circumstances was being accomplished in days, driven by the urgent needs of war. Their power systems are actually simpler than ours in some ways, Wright explained to Reed during a brief respite from battle. They rely on efficiency rather than innovation. It makes their tech reliable but predictable. Reed nodded. Can we use that against them? Wright smiled. Already working on it. We've identified a frequency that disrupts their shield harmonics. It's not enough to disable them completely, but it weakens them significantly. This information was immediately distributed to Earth's forces. The effect was dramatic. Confederation ships that had seemed nearly invulnerable were suddenly taking damage. Supreme Leader Zax, who had arrived in the system aboard the Confederation's massive dreadnought, was not pleased with the reports he was receiving. How is this happening? He demanded of his military commander. These humans were supposed to be an easy conquest. The commander, a veteran of dozens of campaigns, looked shaken. Their tactics are unorthodox, Supreme Leader. They don't fight according to any doctrines we've encountered before, and they learn from every engagement, adjusting their approach faster than we can counter. Zax's expression darkened. I want their planet taken. Now. Whatever it takes. We could deploy the planet killers, the commander suggested hesitantly. Zax considered this. The planet killer weapons were rarely used, not out of mercy but because conquered planets were valuable for their resources. But if Earth couldn't be taken, prepare them, Zax ordered. If these humans won't submit, they will be eliminated. The commander saluted and left to carry out his orders. Zax turned to stare at the view screen showing the distant blue-green planet. Such a troublesome species. How had their intelligence reports been so wrong? Back on Earth, the surveillance devices placed on the Confederation flagship had captured Zax's conversation. Commander Reed called an emergency meeting of Earth's military leadership. They're preparing to deploy weapons capable of destroying our planet, he announced without preamble. We need to locate and neutralize those weapons before they can be used. Admiral Thorne spoke up. Our intelligence suggests their planet killers are aboard specialized vessels. They haven't entered the system yet. Then we need to control the entry points, Reed said. Every jump point they've been using to bring in reinforcements needs to be monitored and defended. Fleet Commander Garcia nodded. I'll redeploy our fleet immediately. But we're stretched thin already. That's why we need to reveal our final line of defense, Reed said. He activated a display showing thousands of objects scattered throughout the solar system. These are our automated defense platforms. They've been disguised as mining operations, science stations, even space debris. It's time to bring them online. The others looked stunned. The scale of the hidden defense network was beyond what even most of Earth's military leaders had known about. How long has this been in place? Garcia asked. Decades, Admiral Thorne answered. After the last Earth War, we turned our focus outward. We always knew there might be threats beyond our system. Reed nodded. Activate them all, and prepare to execute Operation Firebreak. Operation Firebreak was the most aggressive plan in Earth's arsenal, a direct attack on the Confederation's command structure. If they could capture or eliminate Supreme Leader Zax, it might force the Confederation to reconsider their approach. As Earth's forces repositioned to defend the jump points, the automated defense platforms throughout the system came to life. Satellites that had appeared dormant suddenly revealed weapon systems. Asteroid mining equipment transformed into missile launchers. Even the civilian habitats on Mars and Europa unveiled defensive capabilities. The scale of the deception stunned the Confederation commanders. They had based their attack plans on intelligence that showed minimal defense infrastructure. Now they faced weapons on all sides. Meanwhile, on several worlds throughout Confederation space, news of Earth's resistance was spreading. Species that had submitted to Confederation rule without a fight began to take note. If humans could resist, perhaps they could too. On a planet called Novel, which had been under Confederation control for over a century, the first acts of sabotage began. Factory workers deliberately damaged production equipment. Information systems mysteriously malfunctioned. Security forces found themselves dealing with scattered protests. Representative Krell, a member of the Novalian species who served in the Confederation's bureaucracy, secretly contacted others who shared his discontent with Confederation rule. For years, they had been a small, quiet resistance. Now, inspired by Earth's example, they were growing bolder. The humans have shown it's possible to fight back, Krell told his fellow resistors. We need to support them however we can. Similar movements began on other conquered worlds. None were significant enough to threaten Confederation control immediately, but they represented a troubling trend for the alien leadership. As the conflict in Earth's solar system intensified, both sides took heavy losses. Confederation ships were destroyed or disabled by the dozens, but human outposts and vessels fell as well. The space around Earth became a graveyard of broken ships and debris. Director Parker's cyber warfare campaign continued to wreak havoc on Confederation systems. Their communications were disrupted, their targeting systems compromised, their battle plans revealed before they could be executed. We've never fought an enemy like this, a Confederation commander admitted to his subordinates. They don't just counter our moves, they anticipate them. Supreme Leader Zax was furious as report after report detailed failures and setbacks. The easy conquest he had expected had turned into a costly, protracted conflict. Worse, news of Earth's resistance was spreading throughout Confederation space, inspiring unrest on previously pacified worlds. The planet killers will arrive within one of their days, Zax informed his war council. Once Earth is destroyed, this resistance will end. Other species will see the price of defiance. What Zax didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment. Dr. Wright's team had decrypted enough Confederation communications to know exactly when and where the planet killer fleet would arrive. Commander Reed gathered Earth's best forces for a desperate mission. They would intercept the planet killers before they could deploy their weapons. This is our most critical operation, Reed told the assembled commanders. If those weapons reach Earth, it's over. Not just for us, but for every species that might be inspired by our resistance. The mission would be led by Captain Mitchell and the stealth vessel Spectre, accompanied by Major Reeves and her Special Forces team. They would board the lead planet killer ship and disable its weapons while Fleet Commander Garcia's forces engaged the rest of the fleet. As the planet killer fleet prepared to enter Earth's solar system, Supreme Leader Zax felt confident that victory was finally at hand. The humans had fought well, surprisingly well, but they could not stand against the Confederation's ultimate weapons. What Zax didn't realize was that his arrival in the system had forced Earth's leaders to consider their own ultimate weapon. Deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, technicians prepared to activate Project Lazarus, the advanced AI system designed for warfare that had been deemed too dangerous to use against other humans. Are we certain about this? Admiral Thorne asked as he and Reed stood in the control room of the Lazarus facility. Once it's activated, we may not be able to shut it down. Reed looked grim. If the planet killers break through, we won't need to worry about shutting it down. There won't be anyone left to do it. Thorne nodded slowly. Then God help us all. The technicians completed the final activation sequence. The swirling liquid metal in the central pillar began to pulse with an inner light. Screens around the room filled with data as the AI system came fully online for the first time. Lazarus is active, the lead technician reported. All systems functioning within parameters. Reed approached a communication terminal. Lazarus, this is Commander Marcus Reed of Earth Defense. Do you understand me? A voice responded, neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor entirely human. I understand, Commander Reed. I have been briefed on the current situation. The Confederation poses an existential threat to humanity. My primary directive is to ensure human survival. Reed exchanged glances with Thorne. The AI was working as designed. So far. We need your help to counter the planet killer fleet, Reed said. I am already analyzing their approach vectors and weapon signatures based on available data. Lazarus responded. I have identified several potential vulnerabilities. Uploading tactical recommendations to your systems now. Information began flooding Earth's military networks. Battle plans more complex and comprehensive than any human strategist could have developed, exploiting weaknesses in Confederation systems that even Dr. Wright's team hadn't discovered. As Earth prepared for the arrival of the planet killers, Commander Reed knew they were facing their greatest test. If they failed, humanity would be extinguished. If they succeeded, they would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The final battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. They thought humanity feared war. Then the galaxy discovered its mistake. The planet killer fleet emerged from the jump point near Jupiter's orbit. 5 massive vessels, each bristling with weapons designed for a single purpose: the destruction of inhabited worlds. Behind them came an escort of Confederation warships to protect these devastating weapons until they could reach their target. Commander Reed watched from the command center as the enemy fleet appeared on the tactical display. Even knowing what was coming, the sight was chilling. "All forces in position?" he asked. Admiral Thorne nodded grimly. "Task Force Alpha is hidden behind Europa. Task Force Beta is in the asteroid belt. The Spectre is on approach, undetected so far." Reed took a deep breath. This was humanity's moment of truth. Launch Operation Firebreak. Throughout the solar system, Earth's forces sprang into action. The automated defense platforms opened fire on the Confederation escort vessels. Fleet Commander Garcia's ships emerged from hiding positions to engage the enemy, and Captain Mitchell's stealth vessel Spectre silently approached the lead planet killer. Aboard the Spectre, Mitchell addressed his crew. "Our mission is clear. We get Major Reeves and her team aboard that ship. They disable the planet killer weapon. We extract them. Simple." No one pointed out that nothing about the mission was simple. They all understood the stakes. Major Lisa Reeves and her Special Forces team checked their equipment one last time. They wore modified spacesuits incorporating elements of captured Confederation technology, allowing them to operate in alien environments. "Remember, we only get one shot at this," Reeves told her team. "The fate of Earth depends on us disabling that weapon." As the battle erupted across the Jupiter orbital zone, the Spectre slipped undetected through the chaos. Using the massive energy signatures of weapons fire as cover, Mitchell guided his ship to the underside of the lead planet killer. "Contact," Mitchell reported softly as magnetic clamps secured the Spectre to the alien vessel. "Cutting through now." Specialized tools designed to breach Confederation hull materials created a passageway between the two ships. Reeves and her team moved quickly into the enemy vessel. Inside the planet killer, the human team encountered their first challenge: the alien atmosphere. Despite their modified suits, they could only remain inside for 30 minutes before the toxic environment would penetrate their defenses. "Move fast. Stay quiet," Reeves ordered as they made their way through the alien corridors, following a map developed from intelligence gathered by Dr. Wright's team. Meanwhile, the battle around Jupiter had escalated to unprecedented intensity. Earth vessels fought with a desperation born of knowing there would be no second chance. Confederation ships responded with the full might of their advanced technology. Fleet Commander Garcia's flagship Defender engaged 3 Confederation cruisers simultaneously, its enhanced shields barely holding against their combined firepower. "Target their propulsion systems," Garcia ordered. "We need to keep them away from Earth at all costs." In Earth orbit, Admiral Jana Wilson commanded the planet's last line of defense. If the planet killers broke through, her forces would be the final barrier between humanity and extinction. "All defense satellites at full readiness," Wilson reported to Reed. "Planetary, shield generators at maximum capacity." The planetary shield was another technology developed, but never deployed during the last Earth War. A network of generators capable of creating an energy barrier around the entire planet. It had never been tested at full scale, and no one knew if it would hold against the planet killer's weapons. Dr. Samuel Hayes, creator of the Pandora Protocol, Earth's most classified contingency plan, stood nervously in the command center. His life's work was about to be put to the ultimate test. "The Pandora Protocol is ready," Hayes informed Reed quietly, "but I hope to God we don't need to use it." Reed nodded grimly. The Pandora Protocol was humanity's final terrible answer to the threat of extinction. Quantum weapons designed to target specific genetic markers. They could, in theory, eliminate an entire species while leaving all others unharmed. It was a weapon of last resort, one that crossed moral lines many thought should never be crossed. "So do I, Doctor," Reed replied. "So do I." Inside the lead planet killer, Major Reeves and her team had reached the central weapons chamber. The alien technology was beyond anything they had seen before. A massive crystalline structure pulsing with energy that seemed to bend the light around it. "That's the targeting matrix," Reeves said. "Consulting the technical data provided by intelligence, we destroy that, and the weapon becomes useless." As they prepared to place their explosives, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "They had been detected. Work fast," Reeves ordered as she and two team members took up defensive positions at the chamber entrances. "We hold them off as long as we can." Outside, the battle had turned against Earth's forces. Despite their courage and ingenuity, the technological gap was simply too great. Confederation ships were breaking through, moving inexorably toward Earth. In the command center, Reed received the dire news from Fleet Commander Garcia. "We can't hold them, Commander. There are too many. The planet killers will break through in minutes." Reed closed his eyes briefly, then made the decision he had hoped to avoid. Initiate the Pandora Protocol. Target the Confederation command ships only. Dr. Hayes looked up sharply. "Are you sure? Once deployed, we can't control where this ends." "I'm sure," Reed said firmly. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it." Hayes nodded and began the activation sequence for the quantum weapons. These devices had been secretly positioned throughout the solar system, disguised as communication relays and scientific instruments. "Quantum targeting active," Hayes reported. "Seeking Confederation command biosignatures." As the Pandora Protocol came online, another factor entered the battle: Project Lazarus, the advanced AI system. Through Earth's communication networks, Lazarus had been observing the conflict, analyzing patterns, identifying weaknesses. Now it acted. Confederation systems across the fleet began to malfunction in ways that defied explanation. Ships veered off course. Weapons failed to fire. Communications became garbled or cut out entirely. "What's happening?" Supreme Leader Zax demanded as his flagship systems flickered around him. His officers had no answers. They were facing something beyond their experience, an artificial intelligence that could outthink their entire command structure. Aboard the lead planet killer, Major Reeves and her team had placed their explosives on the targeting matrix. They were now fighting a desperate retreat back to the Spectre, facing waves of alien defenders. "We're cut off," one of Reeves's team shouted as Confederation forces blocked their escape route. Reeves made a quick decision. "Detonate now. Complete the mission." The team member holding the detonator hesitated. "But Major, you won't make it out. That's an order. Earth comes first." The explosives detonated, destroying the planet killer's targeting system in a cascade of energy that tore through the ship. Reeves and her remaining team members were caught in the blast, sacrificing themselves to save their world. The lead planet killer drifted out of formation, its primary weapon disabled. But 4 others remained, still moving toward Earth. In the command center, Reed received word of Reeves's success and sacrifice. There was no time to mourn. The battle continued. Pandora weapons locked on Confederation command ships, Hayes reported. "Ready to fire," Reed hesitated. Once these weapons were used, humanity would cross a line. They would become the very thing they had feared, a species willing to exterminate another for its own survival. "Commander, we're out of options," Admiral Thorne said quietly. "If those planet killers reach Earth," Reed nodded. "Fire." The quantum weapons activated simultaneously. There was no dramatic explosion, no visible beam of energy. The effect was more subtle and more horrifying. On targeted Confederation ships, alien crew members simply began to collapse as their cellular structures broke down at the quantum level. Supreme Leader Zax felt it first, a strange tingling sensation that quickly became agonizing pain. Around him, his officers were experiencing the same symptoms. What have they done?" Zax gasped as he fell to his knees. In the midst of this grim turn, a message was broadcast from Earth to all Confederation vessels. Dr. Wright had worked with the diplomat Vox to craft a communication that all species would understand. "Attention Confederation forces. We have deployed quantum-targeted weapons against your command ships. These weapons affect only your leadership. We do not wish to destroy your entire species, but we will if forced. Withdraw now and the attacks will cease. Continue your aggression, and we will extend the quantum targeting to all Confederation species." It was a bluff. The Pandora weapons had been designed to target only specific genetic profiles, not entire species. But the Confederation didn't know that. The effect of the message, combined with the visible effects of the quantum weapons, was immediate. Confederation ships began to withdraw, their formations breaking apart in disarray. The remaining planet killers, now without clear command, halted their advance toward Earth. One by one, they turned away. In the aftermath, as Earth's forces secured the solar system, humanity faced the consequences of their actions. They had survived, but at what cost? The quantum weapons had killed thousands of alien leaders, a targeted genocide that couldn't be undone. "We did what we had to do," Admiral Thorne told Reed as they surveyed the damage reports. "There was no other choice." "There's always a choice," Reed replied quietly. "We chose survival. Now we have to live with that choice." In the days that followed, a delegation from the breakaway Confederation worlds arrived at Earth. Led by Representative Krell, they came not as conquerors but as potential allies. "What your species accomplished is unprecedented," Krell told Earth's leaders during the first formal meeting. "You've shattered the myth of Confederation invincibility. Dozens of worlds are now questioning their allegiance." "We didn't want this conflict," the Secretary General replied. "We simply refused to be conquered." "And in doing so, you may have liberated more than just yourselves," Krell said. "Many of us have long believed that the Confederation's approach is wrong. Cooperation is better than conquest. We would like to form a new alliance with Earth, based on mutual respect rather than dominance." The proposal was met with cautious optimism. Humanity had proven itself a formidable force in the galaxy, but many recognized that their victory came with responsibilities. "We need to be careful about our place in this new alliance," Reed told Dr. Wright as they discussed the proposal. "We've shown what humans are capable of when threatened. That's going to frighten many species," Wright nodded. "They thought we feared war, but they discovered their mistake. Now we need to show them that we value peace even more." Later, in a private meeting with Earth's leadership, Dr. Hayes addressed the question that many had been asking. Why had humanity developed such terrifying weapons, only to set them aside? "We never feared war," Hayes explained. "We feared what we might become if we embraced our full capacity for it. The Pandora Protocol wasn't developed to destroy our enemies. It was developed to end all war so completely that no one would dare start one again. A deterrent," Admiral Wilson observed. "The ultimate deterrent," Hayes agreed. "We hoped never to use it." In the final diplomatic session before the new alliance was formalized, Ambassador Krex, who had survived the quantum attacks, approached Commander Reed. "There is something I do not understand," Krex said, his once arrogant demeanor now subdued. "If your species possessed such devastating weapons and the will to use them, why did you not deploy them at once? Why wait until you were on the brink of destruction?" Reed studied the alien for a moment before answering. "We don't love war, Ambassador. We simply understand its cost better than anyone. Peace wasn't our weakness. It was the luxury we afforded ourselves because we had mastered conflict so thoroughly that we could choose to set it aside. Until you forced our hand," Krex considered this. "A species that masters war only to choose peace. The Confederation never encountered such a contradiction before." "Then perhaps it's time for the galaxy to learn a new way," Reed suggested. As Earth joined with the breakaway worlds to form a new interstellar alliance, humanity took on the role not of conqueror but of liberator. Earth forces, now working alongside alien allies, helped free worlds that had been subjugated by the Confederation. The Lazarus AI, having proven its value during the conflict, was carefully integrated into Earth's defense systems, with strict limitations on its autonomy. Dr. Wright and her team worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies based on cooperation rather than competition. And Commander Reed, standing on the observation deck of Earth's first true interstellar vessel, looked out at the stars with mixed emotions. Humanity had survived its greatest test, but the galaxy now knew what humans were capable of when pushed too far. "They thought humanity feared war," Reed murmured to himself. "Now they know the truth. We fear what war makes us become."
"And that is a far more powerful thing." The ship accelerated,
carrying representatives of Earth to meet with their new allies among the stars, leaving behind a solar system forever changed by the conflict that had nearly destroyed it, and the peace that they hoped would follow.